everyone, my name is Piers Rilliard, CEO of RDX Works, the core developer of the decentralized finance protocol Radix, and this is the DeFi Download. Today we're going to be actually having a special edition where we are interviewing Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius, to talk a little bit about what's going on in the market today, because I think everyone is interested to sort of get a bit more depth into why things are happening the way they are and what people are thinking is going to happen on the way forwards, and what lessons we can learn. So Alex, you've just come back from Permissionless, right? Which is a conference out in the US. What was your first? What did you expect when you went to the conference, and what are you actually seeing at the moment?
So first, it was portrayed as the largest DeFi event. So I think it's kind of like competing with ETH Denver or whatever. But I think between 7,000 and 8,000 people. Again, everybody was giddy. The parties were all over. We had our community event, so we're on the quiet side. You know, we don't have flashy parties, but some other people had like really heavy things going on. And so overall, I felt that. Yes, yeah. Well, it's not our brand. You know, our brand is more about consistent and quiet performance, not not getting hammered and not waking up the next morning. So, but the point is that I felt the people were a little too giddy after Luna, right? So the Luna USD debacle that didn't seem to register. The lesson have not been learned, unfortunately. So I think people are still thinking that it's game on, everything just like it used to be, and the shoe hasn't dropped yet.
So let's talk about Luna, right? Because like Luna was an asset that you guys supported on your platform. So like, what was your first like relationship with Luna, and how did that sort of begin? What made you decide that was something you guys wanted to support? And sort of how did that change over the period of time that sort of Luna's rise and spectacular fall has happened?
Yeah, so we don't have any special relationship. It's not like, I think there were stuff in the news about Jump and other companies who obviously invested in the project Galaxy, Three Arrows and so on. We never invested. We never lent to Luna. We don't have any special marketing relationship or anything like that, right? So our community asked us to add both Luna and USD to the wallet because they obviously hold a lot of those assets. We did that, and when they give you these coins, you have to deploy them. You can't pay high yield on Luna or USD if you're not deploying the coins. So we had to put them to work just like everybody else is. And when we were in the protocol, again, we did not have any special info. It's not like we knew something bad is about to happen and we jumped out first. We just have a very strict risk and security monitoring protocols. And when something depegs, we first go to the sidelines and then we make decisions. So this was more about just practice. And I remember I was talking to the team. I said, look, guys, as long as the market cap of Luna is greater than the market cap of USD, I think everything is going to be fine. If the market card starts dropping and becomes negative, things are going to get in trouble. So don't wait until it's negative, right? The minute you see it dropping and you see that it's in a trajectory to get there, you need to take action. So I give, again, unfortunately, a lot of other people who were asleep or were on vacation or were with their families didn't, not everybody can monitor this stuff 24/7. We have just our security team is 40 people. Our risk team is 20 people or so. So, and that's the benefit of using Celsius, because you get to rely on these teams to do the work that none of us has time to do, not the research, not the execution. And, I really feel that we helped at least the Celsius community minimize losses on these platforms.
So this was like your risk-based approach. So every asset that you add, you guys take a risk-based approach to that asset, and you have sort of things that you think are the trigger points. So I mean, it was a substantial amount of money, right? It's about $500 million, so like $500 million that you guys pulled out to protect your underlying customers, which is amazing. What do you now like take as personally, and what do you think the DeFi market as a whole should be taking as lessons from this, from the Luna collapse? And what pain, if any, do you think is still yet to come? Like what else is going to happen from now going forwards?
Well, so DeFi, remember, Celsius created yield before DeFi. DeFi is almost like just a smart contract copy of Celsius, right? And people thought that, oh, look, we can do it so easily with just a few smart contracts and a few bridges. But the reality is that we're seeing that obviously the complexity is much greater than anyone expected, and all the people who are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into brand new protocols are realizing that may not be a very smart idea. So at Celsius, we do our own audits. We review projects very carefully, and we only add things after we kind of feel that they have certain level of maturity. And we reject, I would say, probably 8 or even 9 out of 10 projects that are submitted to us. People saying, "Oh, why don't you put some money on my protocol?" So I feel that the industry going forward is going to have much higher bar as far as what it takes to launch something. And again, we still have a lot of hacks, a lot of problems that are happening all the time. And so every time something like this happens, we're losing more and more community members. We're getting more and more people wrecked. And these people leave crypto, right? They don't stay. It's not like they go get a loan and put more money to work. They're done. They're out. So now we have to go back and find, hundreds of thousands of millions of new customers, which is obviously always painful. Celsius went through 5 winters, right? And every winter, every crypto winter, we learn new lessons. But the key for us is that we are the slow and steady player versus the fast and reckless. And that's what we've grown our community, grown our user base. So those are the things that I think make a big difference.
But if you're a DeFi protocol, right, and you're building in this space, what should you as a founder, as a founding team, take away as a lesson from this about how you build going forwards?
So one important lesson is, again, minting more tokens or creating inflation and calling it yield is not going to work anymore, right? Just because you are showering tokens on people and you're hoping the community is going to grow and that your community is growing faster than the inflation of the tokens, that is not a sustainable business model. Again, at Celsius, we're earning the yield, right? So people actually pay us. A third party pays us interest, pays us for the use of the capital, and then we share that with our community. So that's very, very different than us going to our treasury, creating some kind of fake yield and telling everybody, look, you're earning 18%, and so on. So those are so I think people are building new protocols have to innovate, right? Just forking this or that protocol and calling yourself something else. And all these projects are forks, right? I mean, very little innovation.
For the last 2 years, basically.
Yes, exactly. So I think, we're here to innovate. We're here to create things like Celsius X, cross-bridge, layer 0 cross-bridge functionality where there's nothing to hack. And we have proof of reserves on top of it with Chainlink, CCIP with Chainlink. So that's innovation, right? That's solving a cross-chain problem of liquidity, of accessibility, of instant settlement. So I think, again, we need to raise the bar. We have to look at each other and, again, figure out, okay, how do we collaborate? How do we work together? And stop chasing short-term rewards.
I think that's actually one of the things that I love about bear markets. you see the majority of innovation coming out of bear markets, and because the reason being is that your barrier, your bar for value creation in terms of what you're actually doing is higher because capital is more cautious. So you have to get over a certain threshold for capital to go, well, even though the market conditions aren't great, this looks like such a good innovation, such a good opportunity that I'm going to put money behind it. And so you end up getting slower capital, people who are thinking more about investing in the long term into things that they see real utility and value in. But you also get teams that aren't under this like huge pressure to deliver something new quickly every like month or 3 months or whatever, because what the market wants is just new things to put capital in. And the bar becomes very low. So you end up getting a large amount of crap at the top. The other thing that I think, so I'm really excited to see what this next sort of bear cycle is going to create in the DeFi space, because I think that there's some really interesting innovations that have happened, right? Like continuous function market makers are really interesting. The idea of creating, as you say, like things like Aave and Compound are a decentralized version of things like Celsius, but the fact you can then stitch those together with other applications like Uniswap so that you can do flash loans against things, like all of those kind of like core innovations I think are really interesting. Now, was there too much leverage in there? Yes. Was there token designs that meant that, you had yields of 3,000% that were unsustainable? And actually what happens is it was the early people who are using the later people as their exit liquidity. Yes. All of those things need to change. I think for me, one of the big lessons that I take away from this is also that market cap is not market value. Right? Like if your market cap of Luna is $2 billion, but the market depth is only $100 million or $200 million, it doesn't require $2 billion to take it to zero. It only takes $200 million to take it to zero. And I think that these ideas of the secondary market actually being the most important market to look at when you're building DeFi protocols, especially around things that are collateralized by something else, that's going to be more important. And I'm sure it's something you guys think about as well, right? Your liquidation risk versus market capitalization. You probably look at the volume, traded volume, more than you do the total market cap. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the components. There's others as well. I think in an up market, everything works perfectly because, again, there's many people joining and prices are going up and everybody's just piling on top. But what's happening in the down market, where people are leaving organically, and then you have short sellers piling up, and that basically these things accelerate dramatically. And I think people did not expect Luna to collapse in 2 days, right? So people have never seen that because most of the participants in this market, that's their first winter. At Permissionless, I did a panel, was standing room only, and I was like, okay, for whom it's the first winter? And then most people raise their hands. So I think so that tells you that people don't understand the dynamics or how. What creates that price, what creates that market cap. And, the sharks of Wall Street are here. They're patrolling our waters now. And anyone who's weak or vulnerable or whatever gets bitten by the sharks, So Luna was its own ecosystem. And luckily, again, it did not cascade or did not collapse with it many other projects like Lehman Brothers did in 2008, where basically every bank was vulnerable because the short sellers were just going from one bank to the next. Here, it was Luna UST, but they immediately started testing the other protocols or the other stable coins to see who and what. And just like Wall Street, you're seeing a rebound. Like yesterday was a big rebound day for the tech stocks, for the beaten up tech stock, because the short sellers realize, oh gosh, we can't really lean on these things anymore. Let's buy back. And you see things going up 10 or 15%, just like they were going down 10 or 15%. So people have to understand that everything works both ways. Everybody who's shorting something also have to buy it back, and when they buy it back, it spikes to the upside.
So with Terra and with Luna, I do think that there is still some pain to come. I think that there's a bunch of projects that were using UST as their treasury, right? And I think some projects have now got massively shortened runways, and that's going to affect the number of teams that are working on things. And I'm really curious to see what the regulatory response is going to be here. Do you have a view on what that might be?
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you that definitely some projects are going to get hurt, and that's really the most painful part. Is people who are innovating, who are building the future of finance, their dreams are going to get cut short because, their assets or their treasury basically disappeared, right? So the regulators, they're obviously the bank lobby, the all the people who don't want us to succeed are going to use this in every way possible to convince lawmakers and regulators all over the world that, you see, guys, we told you this is going to be a disaster. You allowed people to try new things, and that's really, really bad, so shut them down. We don't need any innovation. We want everyone to use banks and pay us fees forever. We have an amazing franchise here. The last thing we want is any kind of financial innovation.
So how do you think we can fight that? What can the industry do to help prevent that future coming where regulators come in with draconian regulation around this?
Well, we have to be responsible adults, right? I mean, we have to show these people that some things we're building are reliable, they're consistent, they are used by a broad set of the population in a good way. For example, sustainable yield, right? You mentioned Aave and Compound and so on. Celsius uses all those platforms. Sometimes we're a borrower on those platforms, sometimes we are a lender, but it's a collaborative effort. It's not we're not competing with the DeFi guys. CeFi and DeFi are two sides of the same coin, right? So and Celsius X, that's our project, our DeFi project, that is the cross-chain interoperability stuff, is a great example of how we're contributing. We don't charge any fees on that. It's not like we make a lot of money. It just helps move liquidity between projects, helps all the DeFi guys. So I'm definitely inviting everybody again to work together and then show regulators, lawmakers that this is a reliable and sustainable future.
So what do you think? What do you think the market's going to do from here? What's your predictions for the next 6 months, 9 months, 1 year?
Yeah, so I see a lot of people are very confused. They're seeing, okay, the war in Russia and the economic uncertainty and the Fed and inflation, and they don't understand how all these things are connected. But really, it's all working together. And then if we unpack that, right, if you look at the crypto market always tracks the stock market. So it watches the stock market, right? Whatever the stock market does, it's like a tail on the dog. It wags much harder. The crypto market wags much harder than the dog itself. The crypto market is watching the Fed. So it's like a dog watching its owner. Okay, what does the owner do? I'm going to do the same thing, right? And in this case, the Fed is watching inflation. And inflation is, again, is it a rainy day or is it a shiny day, right? And until now, for several months, we had storms gathering, clouds gathering, right? Every month, they printed higher and higher numbers. And because of that, the Fed basically is just focused on the weather. They could care less if the dog is hungry or not. So here, nothing is going to happen. The markets are not going to improve until the clouds disappear. And for us to see the clouds disappear, we need at least 2 or 3 months of lower CPI numbers. So we went from 8.5 to 8.3. So we have one small decrease. We need much larger decrease. We need to go to the 7th and then the 6th for the Fed to say, okay, we got inflation back tamed in the box. And obviously a lot of that already happened with the markets collapsing and like companies, there's no funding to be had. All the SPACs are dead, right? So a lot of that already took place. A lot of steam has been taken out of the engine, but we still need to see consistently lower inflation, which will come down the stock market. Then the stock market is going to come down the crypto market. So I would say 3 to 4 months before we see upside movement.
Okay, so 3 to 4 months of uncertainty, potentially more downside, more sort of like responses to the first wave. Like I think that, much as like in crypto, if, people were using UST as their treasury, as well as, just lower token prices in general, in the traditional markets, you're going to see companies failing as well, because they can't raise funds or because a lot of their growth was fueled by VC money or similar things. And that, I think that's also going to loop into, as a result, economic contraction, because you're going to see that, like, at least from the point of view of consumers getting worried about spending. So I think I'm definitely aligned with your view on this first bump just being the start, and that there's going to be some settling out to work out whether or not it's just a scare, or it is actually going to start an economic recession, a global economic recession. In the case of a global economic recession, like, do you think that's good for the crypto market, or do you think that's bad for the crypto market?
So, on top of everything we talked about, again, shutting down Russia, the 9th largest economy in the world, is almost like guaranteeing that we're going to get into a recession. I don't know if it's a light recession or depression or whatever, but between the supply chain disruptions, COVID raging in China and other places, all of this economic uncertainty, a lot of capital being lost, right? I mean, I think something like $27 trillion was lost in the stock market and other asset classes just in the last 6 months. So you don't take a hit like that and just keep walking. So we're definitely going to have major consequences, and everybody's going to be adjusted to a new level, a new process. So again, strong projects, strong companies are going to do well, and people who are swinging to the fences and just promising crazy yields that are not sustainable are just not going to be around, right? So, but a lot of that talent is going to recycle. I don't think that talent is going back to Google or Facebook or whatever, right? So they're either going to start new companies or they're going to join other companies, and we're going to fertilize the good projects, like you said before. So definitely, there's going to be. I'm old enough to have seen this with the 2000 boom, and and all the others that came after, and so I think we learned our lessons, or at least some of us have learned our lessons, and we're gonna do the right thing going forward.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. It's always a pleasure talking with you, but it's great to get you on to sort of talk a bit about the markets as well. Is there anything that you would sort of like to add or leave with before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so look, I want to call the community, everybody who's watching this, to make sure that they understand that we all have responsibility to grow crypto. If we don't build it, we all going to end up with the banks and with what like ATM machines from 1975. So if we have to educate others, we have to make sure that we continue to bring new people into the industry, and that we support the projects that are viable here, right? I mean, if we think it's somebody else's job, then nothing's going to happen. So pulling our weight, right, and really building a community is what's going to make the difference between this industry being the future of finance or just being an experiment that's written in the history books as, oh, look, a bunch of people tried to reinvent finance, but they failed,
I think that's absolutely true and super powerful. Like, it is a huge potential, but it's fragile, and it's up to us to make sure that it actually comes about 100%. Alex, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me back. Talk to you later.